All right. So we'll discuss about integration. So generally, why we use integrations is to connect some external service. We use generally the integrations. Okay. So connecting in the sense some two different systems are available where you are talking to two different systems through a protocol. Okay, so generally, whenever you have two different systems, you should have a common protocol in order to have a communication. Protocol is nothing something like HTTP, Hypertext Transfer Protocol, or SOAP is another protocol, Service Oriented Architecture Protocol. Okay, so these are the protocols which talks in a different language. Okay, so whenever you have two different systems, so always you talk in their specific language. Okay, so in their specific language, in a sense, you need to be understanding both the systems protocol with us communication, or we can say language. Okay, so you have to understand both the systems protocol, and then you need to have a communication channel built up. Okay, so this communication channel which you are building between two different systems is called as an integration. Okay, so integrations are always dependent. It could be a different systems or it could be a PRPC system. Okay, so it's not like always you are trying a PRPC to PRPC integration. Okay, so some external service which is running either on Java or .NET or some other things. Okay, so where you have your own PRPC system, this is your PRPC system where you are trying to have a integration between these two different systems. Okay, so here you have VRPC and here you have some .NET or Java or anything like that. Okay, so this is your service provider which is available. Okay, so we have a service provider, that means we are getting the service consumed in our PRPC application. Okay, so we always send a request, we always get a response. Okay, so we are sending a request to this external service, and after that we are getting the response. Okay, so in this way we are sending the request, and after that we are getting the response back again. Okay, so we are getting the response to the PRPC system. Okay, so this is, we call it as a connector. Okay, so the establishment between the request and response between two different systems, we are going to have a connection between these two. Okay, so we are going to have one is a request and the other one is response parameter. Okay, so we send a request as it is expected here. Okay, and similarly we get a response back from the system. Okay, so we need to be getting the request sent, we need to send the request in the form of how it is expected here. Okay, similarly we need to get the response how we are expecting here. So in PRPC we are expecting everything in the form of properties, whereas the request is going to be sent to the external service in the way it is expected. So obviously, most of the communications, most of the integrations, always it is dealt in the form of XML. Okay, so almost all the services are having a common language. We call it as extensible markup language, which is nothing but XML. Okay, so extensible markup language is a language which is for changing or which is for interacting with the two different systems. Okay, so this XML request we are sending in the form of an XML, and once we get the response in the form of XML, we have to convert that into PRPC language, which is properties. Okay, so this conversion between the two different systems is the one which we need to be taking care. Okay, so before sending the request, what we need to do, the properties should be converted back into XML file. Okay, so because the request which is expected at the other end is XML, so you need to convert the properties into XML file. Okay, so you need to convert the XML into an XML file, which is expected as an input to the external service. Okay, whereas if you go with a response, you are getting in the form of XML here. So we need to convert this into properties. Okay, so here you are going to add the properties. So we are getting the XML file converted into properties. Okay, so XML file is converted into properties to store the values in our PRBC. So which is happening under the response. Okay, so this is my request, this is the response. Okay, so if you go with the SOAP connection, now for the SOAP connections, the protocol here is SOAP is WSDL files, okay, which is nothing but WSDL. WSDL is web service definition language. Okay, so for the SOAP connectors, we always go with the protocol called WSDL, the web service definition language, which is also a form of an XML. Okay, it is having a standard template which can be understood by the SOAP protocols. Okay, so this visuals will be understood by the SOAP protocols. Okay, so that is the reason you are going with the web service definition language is the common language, which is a standard way of how it is expecting the input, how we will be getting the response. So everything is defined in this digital files. Okay, so whenever you are establishing a connection between two different systems in the form of SOAP connectors, we always use this digital file as an input. Okay, so which gives us an understanding of what is expected as an input and what is the response you will be getting as a response. Okay, as an output. Okay, so in this way the web service definition language will be given by the client or the service which you are trying to consume it. Okay, so this service provider, we are going to provide, he is going to provide a SOAP visual for us, and this is the input in order to create our service. Okay, so once we get the visual, then we have to establish the connection between two different systems. Okay, so let's take some sample visual file from the Google. Okay, so here if you can search, you can have multiple visual files. So visual files will be in this format. Okay, so this is how the visual files will be there. Okay, so it is also a language which is similar to an XML file. Okay, so this is how the results will be given so that it helps us to connect to that service. Okay, so here this is my visual file which is I got it. So whether the service, which service it is trying to hit, we can see that by using this. You go down here, you can see the service which is trying to hit. Okay, so here, okay, so here we can see the digital file is generated, and it is the one which is hitting the service, this service. So we can see by connecting whether the service is available or not. This is not there. So if the service is available, this will be running for you. Okay, so you can check some other visual file where the service is available. So this is another visual file which is hitting this one. So you can see the address location where it is going to. So this is the one, I guess. HTTP schemas XST. This is XST. Okay, this is also not working. Okay, so earlier we used to have this one. We'll use this thing, same thing. Global weather visual file to get the weather forecasting by using this service HTTP. So this service, if you hit it, you can see the operations which are available. Okay, so here you can see the get cities by country is one operation and get weather is the other operation. Okay, so once you click on it, you can see the parameters which are expected here. Okay, so we can get the weather by giving the city and the country, but I guess this is not working for now. There is no data currently. You can go with the other one, which is getting the cities by country. Okay, so here if I give the country name, I will be getting the cities. Okay, so in here I can see all the cities which are available in that country. Okay, so let's take this service, and by taking this visual file, we'll generate our own request and response parameters, how we need to be passing to it. Okay, so by copying, or we can take directly this visual file copied, and this is here coming back to the Pega integration. So now what we need to do is, by taking that visual file, we are trying to hit the global weather service, where you are going to get the list of cities from that country. Okay, so we are trying to get a visual file from some external service, and here we are going to create our integration with that. Okay, so click on integrations, connectors, create soap integration. Okay, so this is going for soap integration. Okay, and as I said, soap is expected to have a visual file, so only if you have a visual file you are ready to do this. Okay, so the first step, primary input which is expected from us is visual file through URL. Okay, so through the URL, which is the one which we downloaded, or we can give the same URL which is there. Okay, so give this URL name and click on next. Okay, so here you can see the global weather URL which is trying to hit it. Okay, so this is your endpoint URL, which is the one where you are getting the list of operations which are expected. So this is the endpoint URL, which is the one which is read from visual file. Okay, so what system will do is, it is internally parse the code which is there in this visual file. Okay, so it understands where is the endpoint URL. Okay, so it automatically, system has given that to be understanding the visual file. Okay, so here it understands it, and it is going to take the location from this visual file. Okay, so which service is going to hit it, it is going to take that service name and displaying over here. Okay, and here you see the service name, it is given as global weather. Okay, so it is just the name, whatever the visual file which is being created. In that visual file, it is taking the label as the first visual label. Okay, so here we have the service name given as global weather. It is the same name which is creating here. Okay, so this service name is the one, and the port name which is Here it is going to decode this. Okay, so this is your port name which is getting from the WSDL file. So everything, whatever which is there in the WSDL, these are understandable by the system. Okay, so it is decoding that and going to get all the information here. Okay, and sometimes if there are some services which we need to configure the authentication. So for that you need to add this option of edit authentication, where you need to define a new authentication profile, which is another rule form that you need to create it. Okay, so there you need to create and give this authentication mechanism. Since as of now this is a free service, I'm not adding any authentication. In case if you have an authentication, you will be getting the credentials from the client. Then you are going to create that authentication rule. Okay. So here we have list of operations provided are two: get cities by country, get weather. So we can select both of these. Okay, so if you want only to consume one service, select get cities by country, or I doesn't want to go with the get weather. Since that is not working, I can omit that and go with this operation. Okay, so you can test the connection here itself. So here I can provide a testing attribute, the parameter something like say like China. So here I can test it. So make sure the connection is proper or whether the service is running or not by using this option. Okay, so it's just for testing sake before we are actually creating the service. Okay, so click on next. Okay, so here it is expected to have a class name created. Okay, so this is having creating inside the integration classes. Okay, integration rule sets. So whatever the classes which are generated by this soap integration wizard, okay, so this is called as integration wizard. So with this wizard it is going to create the classes in the background. So those class names will be in this way: abc int hyphen the name of the class. So you can change the name of the class. Instead of this you can make it as global weather. Okay, so you have option to change the class name, and this is inheriting from abc hyphen int. Okay, so organization name hyphen int is the super class for you. Okay, so integration related classes you can see under this, and always we have a rule set which is coming from this. When it is going to take a specific rule set, that means it is going to either use the existing ones or it can create a new ones. Okay, so if you want to use the existing ones, go with the integrations here. Okay, so if you consume the already existing rule sets for which is reserved for the integration purpose. Okay, so we have the rule sets created something like the rule set name appending with int. Similarly, abc int. Okay, so you have some of the rule sets where which is appending with int. Those are reserved for the integrations purpose. Okay, so we can consume those rule sets while we are creating our service. Okay, so if you doesn't want to have including in that, you can create a new one as well. So once you start clicking on create, it is going to create the service records which are necessary to connect to that service. Okay, so all the necessary rules will be generated in the background. Okay, so this is going to be completing the job of creating all my necessary rules. Okay, so all the integration classes, integration related rules, whatever which are required. So those rules are also created here. Now we'll see what all the rules that are being created in order to create this service. Okay, in order to consume this service, what all the rules that are required. Okay, so here we see the get cities by country is the service which is the service rule which is created in Pega. Okay, so the service rule name is having connect soap rule form. So this is the name of the rule form which is to connect to some external service. Okay, so you can see that under the category integration connectors. Okay, so for this you have to go with the class which is abc int global weather. So this is the class which is having all my integration related rules created. Okay, so if you go and expand this, here you can see integration connectors. That means the rule connect soap rule is created inside the category integration connectors. Okay, so once you click on this, you can see the same rule form. So where you are actually exposing the service. So get cities by country is the actual service which you are trying to consume it. Okay. So here you get the SOAP action header which is given in the WSDL file. So the main focus should be on to the request and the response parameters. Okay, so you need to send a request to this service. So what is our request should be the country name, and the response will be getting in the form of an XML which is captured at our response tab. Okay, so here the request tab we need to be sending the input parameters. So here what we are doing is we are converting the input in the form of XML. Okay, so we are converting the properties at our PRPC layer and giving as an input in the form of an XML. Okay, so in order to convert the properties to XML, we have a rule form called XML stream rule. Okay, so XML stream rule will help you to convert the properties into an XML. Okay, so if you open this rule, this is also generated by the time of integration wizard itself. So everything is generated by integration wizard. We are just understanding what all the things which are generated. Okay, so based on the WSDL, it is generating all the required things. So here, if you open this XML stream rule, so this is an XML stream rule which is converting the properties into an XML. Okay, so you see here get cities by country parameters is a page property which is created in the class. Okay, so you see the get cities by country parameters is the page which is created for the request. Okay, so whatever the request which you need to pass it, so this is the page property which is having it. Okay, so once you open this page property, you can see the class here is mentioned as get cities by country class. So this page is an instance of this class. Okay, and you see the name of the class here is the new class which is generated in the background. Okay, so this is the class which is having all the necessary parameters that is expected as an input. Okay, so here as of now the parameter which is expected is country name. So that is going to be the property which is created under the class get cities by country. So here you see country name is expected as an input. So this property is being created in the background. Clear? Are you following me? Okay. Okay. So here we are giving the country name as my parameter as an input. So which is stored in the class get cities by country parameter page property. Okay. So by using this page property, I can use the country name input parameter I can give here. Okay, so here in my XML stream rule, I'm converting this property into XML. Okay, so whatever the input which is available, the country name which I'm giving here, so this is going to convert that into an XML file. Okay, so if you see XML file here, it is everything is being defined in a notation something like this way. Element is the node type, okay, and inside that element you have a country name. Okay, so generally the XML how it generates is in this use case. For this use case is in this way. So initially it should be get cities by country, and inside this you have country name, and here you are going to give the parameter, the response parameter, the request input, whatever you are giving, that is going here. Okay, and after that it is closing the brace. So this is how XMLs will be generated. Okay, so XMLs will be generated in this format. So once you are coming to this XML stream rule, it is going to create an XML file in this format. Okay, so this is the input, and this is the input for the external service. Okay, so the external service, when you are trying to hit it, it is going to convert that from here to here in a XML stream rule. Okay, so here you can specify that in order to convert using XML stream rule. Okay. Now, once we get the XML stream rule created, you are going to send the request service. Okay, the service is now hitting, and after that, once you come back to the response, so once the service is hit, so this service which is specified, get cities by country, is going to hit it. So this is the service endpoint URL which is hitting with the request which is being sent, and after that you get a response where the response is nothing is being there here. Yeah, response parameters here. So this is using the XML parse rule. Okay, so this XML parse rule is nothing but parsing the code. Okay, so now you are expecting the result in the form of an XML. An XML has to be converted into the VRPC properties. Okay, so this process of converting the XML to properties will be done by parse XML rule. Okay, so this is another rule called parse XML. Okay, so this rule will help you to decode. So parsing, the name itself says that parsing in the sense decoding. Okay, so here it is going to parse the code and giving you the properties converted. Okay, so let's see that rule form how it will be. So it is also will be in the same format as like you see XML string, but this is different rule. Okay, so this is name here is parse XML. This rule is different, and the last one is different. Okay, so the it looks to be similar, but the process of doing the conversion process is different. Okay, so here it is going to convert the result into get cities by country parameters response. Okay, if you open this, this is the page which is being used. Okay, so get cities by country parameters response is a property which is going to take into consideration, and inside that we have get cities by country result as the property. Okay, so this property will consume the result which you are receiving it. Okay, so here if you go, this parse XML rule will decode that result, and it is going to store in the form of PRPC. got the result. Get cities by country result. So here you can see the end result. Okay. So this property you can see the result which is coming out of that service. Okay. So this is the request and the response parameters that you are getting in the form of XML to property, property to XML. Okay. So getting conversion, this is going to do, this is going to easily manipulate the data into how it is expected and how it is not to be. Okay. So this way we are setting these properties, and this is already generated by PRPC itself. So once you come out of the integration wizard, automatically all these rules are created accordingly. Okay. So here, once we run our service independently, so we can even run the service independently here by clicking on actions, test connectivity. So here we have a test connectivity options where we can see the success message of the connection is established or not. Okay. So this is SSL TLS, which is secured socket layer, which is responsible for the security. Okay. So this is unauthenticated service, so there is no SSL enabled. Okay. So coming back to this error handling mechanism. So if there are any errors which are happening in the trying to connection while trying to connect it. So here this error handling will handle the errors. That means it is going to showcase what all the errors that are happening. Okay. So whatever the errors which you are being happening while you are trying to connect to an external service, that you can capture that into this py status value, py status message, and this is the flow which is going to handle your errors. Okay, so automatically this is provided by PRPC, this flow connection problem flow, which is going to handle any kind of errors which are happening in the flow. Okay, that means any errors which you are trying to connect it, so those errors are captured in this connection problem flow. Okay, so so many times this question is a standard question. So how do you handle the errors in the while you are trying to integrate connect? Okay, so this is the problem flow which is provided by Pega connection problem flow. So here this is the code which is automatically handling the errors. Okay, so if there are any errors, what is that? How do we need to handle it? So that is something it is done in this connection problem flow. Okay, and sometimes we are going to override this rule, override in the sense do a save as operation into our rules, which is going to modify, which allows us to modify the rule. Okay, so which allows us to modify this particular rule, and we can override the things in this particular rule. Okay, so that is something we can do always. Okay, so in order to customize it, this flow can be, in order to customize the error handling mechanism, we always have an option to customize this flow. Okay, and by default the errors which are being captured, those are stored in these properties. The status value will give you the code, and the status message will give you the error message. Okay, coming to the fault tab, so this is another way of handling the errors. So here we have to handle the errors in case if you are getting something related to the SOAP errors. Okay, so SOAP has some default codes, okay, which we call it as SOAP fault codes. Okay, so for those codes you can see, you can google that SOAP fault codes, where you have different set of fault codes which you are getting whenever you are trying to hit the service. Okay, so those fault codes is going to be getting stored inside this py soap fault. Okay, so here you can see anything related to the soap errors. So those are captured in the associated properties here. Okay, so what is the reason of failing? You can see if it is due to the soap error message. If it is the normal exception, you can see with the connection problem flow. Okay, so in this way, you can have the error handling mechanism done in the while you are trying to connect to a soap rule forms. Okay, now let's try to connect by sending a request parameter and then how we are getting the response. So let's have a test activity. Okay. So now while trying to connect to a soap, what is the input that we need to be giving here? Let's try with this method called connect dash soap. So this is a method which we use in order to connect to a soap service. Okay. So once you use this method, let's see what are the inputs that are being expected here. Okay. So service name. Service name is nothing but the connect soap rule which is created. So which is get cities by country. So this is my service rule which I need to use it. Okay. So when I keep this down arrow, I can see only the service rules which are there in work dash class. Why? Because here, if you see this service is created inside ABC, INT, global weather. Okay. So whatever the services which are created inside this class can be viewed only if you have a page context specified here. Okay. So as of now, the step page is belonging to HRMS work. Okay. So based on this context only, you can see the services belonging to that. Okay. So now what we do is we create a temporary page, or we can say integration page, which should be belonging to ABC INT hyphen global weather. So this is the class where this service is being created. Okay, so I need to use the same class name as my step page. So this class name I need to be specifying, and here I need to be giving this page name on my step page. Okay, so when I give this, I can see the services coming from this class. So just save it first time, and now when you give it, you can see get cities by country service which is there inside this class appears over here. Okay, so execution mode you can make it run, or in case if you want to run in parallel, you can select this option, or else if you give this to a server, you can use queue option. Okay, so if you use queue, this work is allocated to server. Okay, so server will run in the background. So I want the response immediately, so I will be running with the execution mode run. Okay, so here before I am trying to hit this service, what is the expected input from me? I need to give a request parameters. Okay, so for the request parameters, what I need to do? I need to do a property set on this page where I need to send the dot get cities by country parameters dot country name. So this is the input which is expected here. Okay, so I need to set this value here. Okay, so I'm setting the input value which is expected here. Okay, and this value is going to that connect soap rule, and in that connect soap rule it is trying to hit that service, and once you get the result which is stored in get cities by country parameters response. Okay, so now when I run this, it is going to hit the service and get the result. Okay, so now I hit the service and it is good. And when I try to open this under the clipboard, so here you can see this PGINT. This is the page where I get cities by country parameters. So this is the input parameter, country name. And after that, you see the response. This is going to store inside a country parameters result. Okay. So this property is consuming the value here. Okay, so in this way you are trying to hit some external service and getting the value stored in your page property in this way. All right, now you have any questions?
హలో
Yeah, tell me.
మనం కనెక్షన్ ఇచ్చినప్పుడే అక్కడ మనకు యాక్టివిటీ క్రియేట్ అవుతుంది కదా.
ఇక్కడ
సో
connection
అక్కడ హార్డ్ కోడ్ చేసుకో. వెబ్ సర్వీసెస్ నేను సోప్ క్రియేట్ చేయగానే మనకి ఒకసారి క్రియేట్ చేసిన క్లాస్కి వెళ్ళరా.
ఓకే,
సో అక్కడ సోప్ క్రియేట్ చేస్తే ఇక్కడ మనకి ఆ కనెక్షన్ కింద యాక్టివిటీ అని కూడా వస్తుంది అందర్ టెక్నికల్.
యాక్టివిటీ రాలేదు ఇక్కడ,
అంటే ఏబిసి డాష్ ఇంటి క్లాస్లో
యాక్టివిటీస్ ఇక్కడ రాదు ఇక్కడ. ఎందుకు వస్తుంది యాక్టివిటీ ఇక్కడ? మీరు చూసేది కనెక్ట్ సోప్ కాదు, సర్వీస్.
ఓకే 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 గాట్ ఇట్.
So here in this way you are just using the connectors. Okay, so the connectors is nothing but you are trying to hit some external service, and after that you are consuming that service in the as a return. Okay, so this is how you are getting the result. Okay, so in case if you are acting as a service provider where you are getting the request and you are sending the response. Okay, so think this in a vice versa situation where someone is asking through a request and you are providing a service to an external request. Okay, so if that was the case, we are the service providers. Okay, so as of now we are service consumers, we are taking the service, we are not providing service. Whereas if you are the service provider, just like you are getting the request and you are going to send the response, which is called as service. Okay, so for that you are going to have a service integrations wizard. Okay, so for that again you have one more wizard called service integrations. Integration services, and here we have a service wizard. Okay, so once you click on it, here it will be asking you a different parameters how to create a service. Okay, so this is having a different set of options to what kind of service that you will be creating for. Okay, so in case if you want to create a service in order to manage some work instance or create some work instance. Okay, so say like you are getting some external input and based on that you have to create a case. Okay, so for that you go with the first option. Okay, otherwise if you have something related to data instance, say like HRMS application, you have a data to be updated based on some external service. Okay, so some external service you are getting the input data and accordingly you are updating the data instance. So that is also possible through this option. Whereas if you want to call a simple activity, which is the activity which is there in the PRPC, so that is something which is behaving as a service rule. Okay, so if you use invoke existing activity rules, that is creating an activity for you, and this activity will do the process of whoever requesting something from you. Okay, so here you can use any of these options, and based on that, the service type we need to be selecting here either SOAP or any other REST services. Okay, so if I go with the SOAP, click on next. Here, which class activity I need to use it as a service. So I need to select the class name, something like data dash jobs or HRMS work recruitment. Okay, so in this class, I'm trying to use some activity. There are no activities in it. Okay, so let's say log capture is the activity which I am trying to expose it. Okay, so when I click this, this is going to be my service provider. Okay, so this is an activity which acts as a service. Okay, so click on next, and here you can see the input and the response parameters. So as of now, there are no request parameters which are given here. Okay, so if you have an activity with some parameters defined, accordingly it will take the input and the output. Okay, so here under the parameters tab, you can define something like this is my input one, and you can define output as well. Okay, so this is acting as an input and the other one is acting as an output. Okay, so when you have this kind of option, if you can see the request and the response parameters. Go back and come back, and here you can see the input values which is expecting from you. Okay, so these are the request parameter and the response parameters, so go with it. Okay, so here this is creating a service rule, and now you can see the properties which are there in this class. Okay, so what all the properties that are available in the class ABC recruitment, so all these properties you can see over here. Okay, so if you want to provide something as an input, you can select any of these or you can move forward. Okay, so nothing is being required. So this is for the input. Let's say I'm taking conveyances, basic and HRA, and the output is salary. So I'm going to compute the salary and giving as a response. Okay. So I'm going to configure a service in some specific rule set. Okay. So here I can use the existing rule sets, something like this. Okay, so I'm providing my service created inside this rule set, and along with it I need to select the version. Okay, and here every time whenever I have a service which is creating, it has to be there in some container which we call it as package. Okay, so we have a service package where you can have a services. Okay, so service package is a rule form which is kind of a container. Okay, so service packages, all these are the service packages, all the services will be there inside a service package. So here you can have one service, you can have another service in this way. Okay, so in this way you can have multiple services available. Okay, service 1, service 2, so you can have multiple services available in one service package. So this is your service package. So package, the name itself says that it is packaging the services. Okay, So this is your service package, which comprises of all the services which are created in your service package. Okay, so here what you can do is you always create a new service package, or you can use an existing service package. So let's create a new service package for now in the next screen. So this is the name of your service package which is created. Okay, so this is the service package which comprises of the service which I have created of log capture is the service. Okay, and by default remains as is, to have access group as the authentication mechanism, and I don't think we require authentication for now, and click on next. Okay, so this is having the package of whatever the details which we have given. Okay, so service package, in order to access the services which are there in the service package, you need to have this access group. Okay, so only the people belonging to this access group can only access it. Okay, so go with it, finish. So what is generated in the background is, one is service package, and inside the service package you have a service rule called log capture. Okay, so all these rules will be created inside the rule set HRMS app INT. Okay, and similarly we are providing a WSDL file. Now you are providing the WSDL file to the external people. So now whoever wants to consume my service, they can take this WSDL file. So I will be providing this WSDL file to my consumers. Okay, so once I give this WSDL file, people who are trying to access it, they can take this as an input. Okay, so here you can see the input values which are given as this thing. So these are my inputs which they have to give to me, and I will compute the salary and give as a response. Okay, so now you can see the service rules which are created. So once you come out of it, so if you open the service package, you can see that. So you can go with service package by going to the records, integration services, sorry, integration resources, and here you have something called service package. Okay, so here you can see all the service packages which are available. Okay, so check with the latest one, updated date time. So this is the one which is created for us. Okay, so I can see all my services which are generated through the wizard under this service package. Okay, so I can go down and see all my services which are exposed here. Okay, so this is my service which I am trying to give to external users. Okay, so this is how we generate a service. And if you open the service rule, which is soap service, this is the service icon soap. Okay, so for the connect soap, you see the connect soap rule form. For the service soap, you see service soap rule form, where you can see the class which is exposed. That means the activity which is exposing the service is this class. Okay, and inside this, you are using the activity called log capture. Okay, so this is acting as a service for your input. Okay, so everything will be again the common. Request response will be the common. So here you see the request which is expected here is the basic conveyances and HRA. So which is accessing through a clipboard. Okay, so what you are today is you are going to get these values from the clipboard, and after that you are sending a response in a XML file. Okay, so this is the response which you are sending. Okay, so internally it is going to take care of converting that to XML, and while getting you are converting XML to input, sorry, properties. Okay, so don't get confused. It is always the vice versa. The SOAP service is always the vice versa of the connect SOAP route. Okay, so this is your ERPC system which you are getting a request, and this is doing the processing job through a log capture operation and sending you the response. Okay, so request is coming to it and response is being sent. All right. Any questions? Can we add the request parameters at this stage? Yes, we can even, any point of time, we can update the request parameters. It is not like once we are done with the integration wizard, we should not be updating anything. We can add any parameters at any point of time. All right. So with that, the services of SOAP is done. Okay. All right. For the project course, we'll discuss the later things, and for the remaining people, we'll discuss about email integration tomorrow. I guess we can have a closure today. Thanks everyone, and have a nice day. Bye.